At the top of the hour, tracking Dorian, a major hurricane gaining strength.
The changing direction that could work in our favor. Storm Team 5 in with the latest update. We begin with Chief Meteorologist Steve Weigel and that 11 p.m. track. Steve.
Yeah, incredible new information coming in tonight. Just into the weather department, the hurricane has been intensifying. It's called rapid intensification, where the central pressure drops rapidly and the winds respond by increasing. We now have a Category 4 hurricane with winds at 140 miles an hour. This could go to a 5, it's possible, and it looks unbelievable on the satellite loop. Although in the last couple of hours, last hour or two, you can see some dry air starting to get close to the center, not quite there though. This is a well-protected hurricane over very warm water, and it is expected to strengthen a little bit more. The eye is about 25 miles wide. The hurricane force winds stretch out 30 miles. The tropical storm force winds stretch out about 105, and that should stay about the same, that wind field in through Saturday and Sunday. So it's a little less than 600 miles away from South Florida. There are the Bahamas there. Warnings are up and watches too. Nothing for South Florida or Central Florida, at least not yet. And here's the latest track. This just came in. So winds at 140. This was 115 at 5 p.m. It's moving west-northwest at 10 miles an hour, and that intensification, you can see a 150-mile-an-hour hurricane tomorrow, all day long. And it continues to track toward the Bahamas. There's Sunday, 8 a.m. There's the Abaco right there, and down through Eleuthera, and there's Grand Bahama. They're all watching this very closely, some of them watching us. And there's Sunday, 8 p.m., 145 miles an hour. There will be some fluctuations in the intensity through the holiday weekend, Monday and Tuesday too. Now this is a critical time. This is when the computer models see a weakness in the ridge and they begin to turn it north. And it's a pretty dramatic turn compared to what we saw earlier. It doesn't take much because we were so close to the coastline earlier on the 5 p.m. advisory. We've shifted just a few miles toward the east and the north, and that's helped keep the track off the coastline, at least up around the Cape. Now, this is also critical. It's an error cone. There are large errors, and we saw this earlier in the week where the models had trended north, and then the next day they trended south again. That could easily happen on Saturday. So we all have to watch this closely, but it is nice to see this consistency run after run through the entire day. So Category 3 at that point, and then paralleling, pretty much running right up the beach to Jacksonville. Category 2 at that point, that's Wednesday. So that's the latest track. The models tonight, as I said, have been, and that's a critical time right there. It'd be Sunday later in the day, making a turn toward the northwest, and then eventually up toward the Jacksonville area. There are some models, what we call the ensemble models, that do bring the storm in more westward and track it west and then more into central Florida. So that's why the error cone remains for most of the state at this point. But it's nice to see at least this trend run after run through the afternoon and evening. But we'll all be watching it very closely tomorrow, hopefully to see that continuation into Saturday and Sunday. The tropical storm force wind field has changed a little bit, the timing. That's 8 p.m. on Monday, just starting to reach the coastline. And this is the time when the turn is expected toward the northwest. Big changes during the day, some of them good, some of them not so good with this intense Category 4 hurricane. I want to bring James, we've been watching it together all day long, and he has more.
Yeah, and this little bit of a shift here kind of all stems from one thing, and that is the fact that it's a little bit slower. So it's going to arrive a little bit later. If you remember watching our broadcast earlier in the week, we were saying they looked like a Saturday night landfall. Now we're 2 day plus later. So the atmosphere is changing there 2 days later than if it were to hit. If it was out there right now and hitting tomorrow night, it would hit us. But now in 2 days from now, that's going to change because the Bermuda high that was strengthening now has time to weaken, and that will open up a possible door. It's just a door, but it's going to be open for it to stay offshore. So here's what I'm talking about. That big high we've been talking about all week, it was strengthening, so it was expanding back west. That was pushing the storm towards us. Now that it's taken so long to get here, that high has time to erode a little bit, and this trough comes down and fights that high out of here and wakes a little weakness right here on top of us. And the storm is going to want to follow that weakness, the path of least resistance here, with the weaker part of the edge of the high, and possibly move offshore. Now, not a time to let your guard down yet. This is just the beginning of trying to pin this down. Keep with your hurricane preps, but it is a very encouraging look now.
James, and